is flared. And we're wasting about 11% to 45% of all of this gas, right?
Absolutely. And besides the fact that it's actually it's damaging the environment as well. Just flaring it is not good.
What needs to happen to harness these resources?
We just need some very strong investor confidence, and that comes from putting the right governance structure and fiscal policies in place that will ensure, cannot overflog the matter of rule of law, and fairness, equity, and also the fact that open-mindedness and doing away with things like monopolistic and absolutist tendencies.
How are lenders responding to the growing sophistication of Nigerian companies in this sector?
Lenders are still very not so. I mean, we're getting sophisticated, that's for sure, in terms of knowing what to do. But the environment is still strangled by the fact that there is a lot of investor lack of confidence, for want of a better word. It boils down to that, irrespective of how sophisticated you may get and how technology savvy you may get. The point is, if a guy knows that he's not guaranteed his return on investment, he will be reluctant to give you the funds required to develop the projects. And even if they did, they'll probably give it to you a premium because of the risk associated with it. So the project starts to fail before it's even taken off because of the exposure and the cost of capital.
Should government remove subsidy on petroleum products? If you were made Minister of Petroleum, what would you recommend?
I'll be honest with you. I couldn't give you a straight answer without knowing the depth of what the implication is. But it would be something I would look at very carefully and ponder on it and have experts to look at it properly and analyze the cause and effect.
What if I told you that about $2 trillion, we're told, is spent yearly on fuel subsidy? I've heard that kind of figure.
Right. Well, it's not the sort of money.
Would it sway you one way or another?
Well, it probably will sway me if I know that rather than spend 2 trillion naira, if I know that, for instance, if I spend did you say trillion naira?
2 trillion.
Yeah, 2 trillion naira. So if I spend 2 trillion naira in bringing in products, which is very wasteful if you ask me, and if I turn that around and spend 2 trillion naira in making sure that I create a climate, I don't have to spend that money, by the way, but put an investor-friendly climate, ring fence to ensure that you put your money into these facilities to ensure that these refineries are upgraded and they're working and they're able to plug that hole to stop us from importing products, then it's a no-brainer. I'll do that.
Oil and gas used to be a very fashionable business. You know, everybody you asked back then, some 7-8 years ago, was into oil and gas, of course, but not so any longer. What happened?
Well, it's also, first of all, oil and gas, most oil and gas projects are long-term projects. The cyclicity is very long. So it's not like you're buying and selling. I mean, you're not buying and selling immediately. You have to invest in time.
Except you were selling petroleum products.
Exactly, the end product.
The end product.
But if you were to look at projects, I mean, there are huge projects in Nigerian space right now that need adequate funding and perhaps are not funded adequately because it's a long cycle. You start with the feasibility study to actually begin to look at the project in its entirety holistically to see, does this project actually make sense? Those runs, depending on the project we're speaking about, those can sometimes run into millions of dollars just for a feasibility study, only for you to find out, okay, this project's not worth taking on. So it's not for the faint-hearted.
It's not for the faint-hearted.
And it's for people with deep pockets and are able to take risk. Risk to the point where you know that if I succeed, I'll get the reward. But not the risk that you take to the point where somebody else comes and snatches away the opportunity from you because we don't have adequate rule of law and guidance in place. So those are the sort of things that would not necessarily make oil and gas the flavor of the month.
Dynamic sectors like telecoms, power, upstream oil and gas remain largely absent from the stock exchange and businesses such as yours as well. Would you consider a public listing for Sona Tusk, for example?
we're far from ready for public listing. Not for any reason, but there's a lot of there's corporate governance and a lot of things that you have to have in place to start to look at using other people's funds to grow the business to the point where you want it. Sonatrach's certainly not ready for that as we speak. But yeah, in the future, when we grow the business to a significant size, we will not shy away from listing.
How can Nigerian companies take even bigger advantage of local content policy in your industry?
It's all about looking for a unique position. The industry is very vast. There's so many areas. My area of specialty is more in the upstream area, so reservoir geology, seismic, reservoir interpretation, and what have you. There's a huge span. There's the engineering side, there's the pipeline transportation, tariffing, it's huge. Create a niche, find an area of interest, and develop it.
Do you reckon that these opportunities are well known to everybody?
Well, to not know in this day and age is not an excuse.
It's a crime.
It's absolutely. And back in the days, you had to go to the library to do research. You had to get journals. They were far and few between. Now, it's just your laptop, your iPad.
What opportunities are there?
And, you begin to see who are the players in that area. You begin to study them, understand what their area of expertise are, what niche, what value they're bringing to the market. And then from there, there's no point reinventing the wheel.
What's the next big thing in this space, in your opinion?
I think for us, we need to monetize our gas before it's too late. We need to monetize our gas because it's the cleanest form of energy. Well, apart from renewable energy, solar, and what have you. Anything that comes from the hydrocarbon, the gas bit of it for firing power plants and what have you, is literally almost the cleanest form of energy you can have outside of solar and other sort of cleaner forms of energy. And we are blessed abundantly. We have no business whatsoever not being able to generate enough power or even distribute the power that we generate across the whole of West Africa, not even just Nigeria.
But what's holding that back? We've been talking about this for a long time. We know the opportunities are there. We know the resources are there. We know how big the reserves are.
Yes.
But and there's so many laws. So what's holding us back in the gas space?
I have to say, without a doubt, investor confidence. The money that is required to develop these assets and these opportunities are huge. But it will not come unless the investor is confident that his investment is secure and he will reap where he has sown. Pure and simple.
You're operating in 3 other African countries.
Yes.
Can you make a comparison between those countries? You're in South Africa, you're in Gambia, you're in Ghana.
Okay, so we're in South Africa, we're in Angola
and Ghana.
We're in Ghana. And we recently just started up a light operation in Uganda. It's difficult and unfair for me to compare cross-border, and I'll tell you why. Nigeria is a going concern for the last 16 years, since 2003. Ghana, perhaps in the last 10. We certainly have more opportunities in Nigeria. We've done a lot more in Nigeria than we've done in Ghana. We've done quite a sizable amount of projects in Angola. Then Angola went through a dip when the oil price slumped. And typically with our business, when the oil price drops, it becomes difficult for service companies like ourselves because all the whistles and bells and all the sort of technological advancement that we try to sell, the operators are not interested. They just want to go through the rudimentary basic stuff. Let's just get that crude out at whatever minimal cost. So all the extended value add, very progressive, innovative technologies we try to promote just sits on the back burner. So, but in terms of comparison, I believe that a lot of the African, certainly other African countries, they see, and I take this, you have to take this with a thick chin sometimes. They say, well, Nigeria hasn't really been as forthright in terms of their development with respect to the resources they've had and all of that. You know, the kind of typical conversation you hear is, we don't want to make the same mistakes you guys made. And some of them are actually putting...
So Nigeria has been a case study.
Yeah. I mean, you find that they're using us as a case study and trying to avoid the pitfall steps where we have essentially blundered. But not without their own challenges as well, you know. But it's an interesting comparison, but I couldn't tell you for sure that it's easier to operate in those countries than it is in Nigeria. They have their own issues as well.
Are there Africa-specific inhibitions to entrepreneurship?
It goes without saying. You know, the idea of you have to know somebody before you can get through the door and all of that. Again, you're not opening it up to an even playing field for all. You know, that's where you get.
And it's not Nigeria-specific.
It's not Nigeria-specific. We have the same in Ghana. We have the same in Uganda. We have the same in Angola. Oh yes, it's the same across board. Unfortunately so.
Africa's future is bright with people like you in the saddle. What do we need to make to achieve that potential that's been talked about for so long?
Well, the sure thing to do is create a niche for yourself, start small, grow, and you know, create a reputation, and your integrity has to be solid along the way. Along the lines, you know, opportunities abound, and people will start to look at the company and the business that you do and say, well, we've done this with this guy successfully for the last 10 years, and we think we can take it to the next step. So I think it's those sort of little innuendos that help propel. And you know, there's a multiplier effect. If we do it and successfully, there's somebody else at the other end might benefit from the fact that, oh yeah, we've done this with a company like this in Nigeria. We're sure we can do it again repeatedly. So it's a multiplier effect of success stories. But you know,
so it's important to think beyond oneself at every point in time.
Absolutely, Modele. We have to be open-minded. The opportunities, I mean, the mentality of grab, and me, myself, and I, it's not sustainable. You have to open up the environment for competition to thrive, for innovation to come to life, because people will then be creative and they will bring ideas along the way to help to make the business a worthwhile venture, and then to sort of have that multiplier effect on other sectors.
Robert Bakre, we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Madam.
And we thank you for watching. Please join us next time when we come around. But between now and then, let's continue this conversation online. I'd like you to please tweet me your thoughts. Thanks again for watching, and bye for now.